Hello and welcome back to Matthew's Tottenham Blog and to another Tottenham transfer roundup in what has been a very, very busy day in the Tottenham rumour mill as we continue to be linked with Lautaro Martinez. But today the attention has shifted to half a dozen midfielders who we're going to talk about throughout this stream. We'll also look at another confirmed departure and updates from Fabrizio Romano via Last Word on Spurs with other players that we call the Deadwood that could be moving out of Spurs in the coming weeks. Before we do dive into that, do make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Click the notification bell so you get notified every time we go live, and smash a like button on the stream if you are looking forward to discussing this transfer news. Good to see a few channel members in the chat. We got Tony Young and Dara and others in here as well. You got Dave, Sandil, Guha, Jay, Oliver, Trouble Media, Caleb, Spencer, Ethelson Edwardson. Good to see you, my friend. Good to see all of you in the live chat. And look, Gus says he's not muted. It doesn't happen that often. Come on. Let's dive straight into things. Fabrizio Romano today has been talking about Lautaro Martinez, who Tottenham are heavily linked with and who we have had a bid rejected for. The initial bid was made a few days ago for £65 million. However, due to the imminent departure of Romelu Lukaku, Inter Milan have decided it's not time to let him go. Romano begs to differ. He has said if there is a chance for Tottenham, it is for €90 million, not €70 million. If Tottenham will try again, it will have to be with add-ons to arrive around €90 million in order to get this deal done. And that's a lot of money. It is a lot of, obviously would absolutely smash our record transfer, and it's a lot higher than we went in with that initial bid. Now there were actually some reports during that initial bid that it was actually something around that was between 65 and 70 million initially, with add-ons bringing it up as high as 90 million. But if Romano is now saying that's something that Inter Milan would accept, well then you'd have to believe that initial bid didn't reach that mark, and it was between 60 and 70 million, as various reports from Alistair Gold, Fabrizio Romano, and from what I've been told as well, is what the value of that bid was. Romano also said Tottenham still have a strong interest in Martinez. However, Inter Milan are still insistent that the striker is not for sale, with Romelu Lukaku on his way to Chelsea. And as I will say now, and as I've been saying all along through this saga over the last 5 or 6 days, is these are the exact words that came out of Inter Milan CEO Beppe Marotta out of his mouth when Romelu Lukaku was initially subject to some interest from Chelsea. And I think a few other clubs were being briefly mentioned about 2.5 weeks ago. The words were he is non-transferable and he will not leave. However, when they got a bid in then that they simply couldn't turn down, and that massively helps their financial state, they accepted that bid. Gianluigi Langari, who has had a fantastic transfer window, has to be said, has come back in on this one, and he said currently Inter Milan's management insist Tottenham target Martinez is not for sale, but ultimately Inter's owner could decide to sell any player at any moment, and that again is just a reflection of the poor financial situation that they're in. Ben, good to see you in the live chat. Flying Kiwi says, joining from New Zealand, really enjoy your streams, sifting through the news and rumours to make sense of it all. I appreciate that, Flying Kiwi. Thanks for tuning in. We do have a super chat from Darkson G21, absolute legend. Thank you as always. Says, I hope we can get Ward-Prowse. He will be a really great addition to our squad. He is homegrown and a really good free kick specialist. Please, Spurs. Two very good points there that I will definitely be touching on later in the stream, but homegrown from Ward-Prowse is something that is really, really important. But Darkson G, thank you as always for the super chat. Going back to Inter Milan and Lautaro Martinez, as we have been doing since these links came out. Initially, we're going to look a bit at Inter Milan's potential replacements for him, and all along it's been Duvan Zapata and Edin Dzeko, and it's been said that they're replacements for Lukaku and are not coming in to allow Martinez to go. They want those two and Martinez. The Duvan Zapata deal at the moment is in a little bit of doubt, but he has been replaced as a target, and Sky Sports in Italy are saying Inter Milan have been quoted €37 million plus for Lazio striker Joaquin Correa. The Argentine striker appears to be the chosen one, and Inter manager Simone Inzaghi is pushing to sign him, having previously worked with him at Lazio. So Simone Inzaghi, who was one of the many names mentioned for Tottenham manager at the end of last season, left Lazio to take up the role at Inter Milan, and now he wants to bring Joaquin Correa with him. And funnily enough, Correa is another player that has been linked to Tottenham in this transfer window. With regards to Edin Dzeko, he today is in Milan. I think he's having his medical and stuff with the club. Fabrizio Romano said yesterday that Edin Dzeko is set to join Inter from AS Roma, confirmed and deal almost completed. Final details to be sorted in the next hours, agreement imminent. And that was almost 24 hours ago at this stage. So I wouldn't be surprised if that one is done. If Tottenham do not manage to bring in Lautaro Martinez, a player that we are looking at is, of course, Dusan Vlahovic. We'll get that in a second, because Brad Matthews with a £5 super chat. Brad, absolute hero, thank you so much. Says, how are you doing, Matt? Brad, I'm absolutely fantastic. I am. I hope you're doing well as well. Says, where will we get 90 million from? I didn't think we had that sort of money to spend on a player. And that is a slight concern, I would say, with regards to the the future of Harry Kane, and one that we're kind of mulling over and thinking, is that actually where this money is coming from? I personally don't think it is coming from an imminent Kane departure, but I can't tell where else it could be coming from, if that makes sense. It's really strange, and I think we do have to remember that the Christian Romero deal is an initial loan deal to be made permanent next year. So I personally think Romero will be paid for by a Harry Kane departure next summer. So I think that deal in there is sorted. So maybe the money that we had initially planned to put towards Romero could now be put elsewhere, towards a striker in Martinez or in Dusan Vlahovic, whoever we do go for. But on Vlahovic, Fabrizio Romano said today on Last Word on Spurs that Fiorentina would want more than €60 million for Vlahovic, which is why a deal for the player is not so easy. He also said earlier today that Arsenal are actually not in the race for Vlahovic, which was a point of potential debate as to whether or not they actually wanted the striker, but he's saying now that they are not in the race. And that is briefly that kind of summary of the strikers. And like I said, there hasn't really been too much on strikers today, because all the attention seems to have been shifted towards midfield targets for Tottenham, which we're going to discuss in detail in a minute. First of all, a few updates on defenders. Fabrizio Romano again said today, again on Last Word on Spurs, they're still in talks with the agent of Takahiro Tomiyasu, but there's still no agreement with Bologna. The deal is not off yet. And Romano was keen to remind us of the way Paratici does his business in negotiating for multiple players at once. So Tomiyasu, although we've been hearing all along that it's a deal that will be completed after the Olympics, he was knocked out of the Olympics more than a week ago. It could just be one of these many negotiations that Paratici engages in, and Tomiyasu in the end just may not be the choice that we go with. Romano also said Aymeric Laporte was offered to Spurs, but they decided to pursue Christian Romero instead, and I believe that was within the deal, the initial offer that Man City made for Harry Kane, but Tottenham turning down Laporte and wanting Romero instead. The Athletic UK also saying today that Tottenham, alongside a few other Premier League sides, are still interested in Yannick Vestergaard, with Southampton holding out for £18 million. And the way that one's looking at the moment, it looks as though if he is leaving Southampton, that he will end up at Leicester, who of course need to replace Wesley Fofana, who broke his leg last week in pre-season. They need a centre-back, and Vestergaard seems to be their number one choice, and one that they are moving quite quickly to get done. Now, midfielders. There's so many midfielders. I think there's 5 that we've been either reliably or consistently linked with today, and we're going to talk about all of them. First of all, Fabrizio Romano on Last Word on Spurs was talking about 2 of these players. He said, I would keep an eye on Denis Zakaria and Corentin Tolisso. Fabio Paratici has a strong relationship with Zakaria's agent. It depends on money, but also on if Tottenham find a solution for Moussa Sissoko. And that is, I think, the worst thing that could possibly have been said in this, because we heard last week that we're actively trying to sell Sissoko, but just no one's interested, which is a terrible reflection on how he's performed in the last year or two. I know Al Hilal were mentioned as a target by some sources on Twitter, but they've since bought Mateus Pereira, and you'd question if they're still going to be in for another midfielder. Although they are typically kind of different styles of player, you'd wonder if Al Hilal will be still pursuing Sissoko, if they even were in the first place. So look, if it depends on that, I think we might just have to hold our breath on any potential deal for Zakaria or Tolisso. Romano also said on Houssem Aouar that Fabio Paratici tried to sign Aouar last season at Juventus, and Paratici has always been in love with this player. So we hear that so often, that Paratici loves this player, that he tried to sign him last year from various sources, but Aouar is another name that falls into that category. The one that I see a lot of you asking about, and of course the one that I have on my thumbnail, is Mike McGrath from Telegraph Sport, who today said that Spurs and Aston Villa are both preparing offers for James Ward-Prowse. Spurs rate him very highly, although for Villa he is their number one midfield target, and it's no surprise that Villa are in there, because he's been linked to them right since the start of the summer. I think it was shortly after their signing of Emi Buendia that people first started mentioning Ward-Prowse for Villa, and it was actually back then when I made the point that they're undoubtedly 100% spending that Jack Grealish money. Of course, Grealish has since moved on to Manchester City, but Ward-Prowse remains a target. If he is their number one target, I wouldn't be too concerned about that, given it's been over a month since they were first linked, so they're clearly not working too fast in that one. But for Tottenham, as Dark Sung G said earlier with his very generous super chat, he's homegrown and he's a set piece specialist. The idea of us bringing in a homegrown player, I think right now, is one that's very important, because we have in our squad 10 players that are eligible to be homegrown for Tottenham, but quite a few of those are youth players. I think Toby Amole has been put in that bracket, and I think Alfie Whiteman as well, who, as we'll talk about later, could be on the way out. So I do think any sort of a deal for Ward-Prowse should probably be taken a bit more seriously, because we do need to get in some homegrown players, and he's a very talented player, a dead ball specialist, one that we kind of type of player that we've really been lacking since the downturn in form from Christian Eriksen when he'd initially decided he wanted to leave Tottenham. So that's one that's exciting. He's not the best option for us. He's not the best midfielder in the Premier League. And if I had the pick of the bunch, I wouldn't go with Ward-Prowse. But he's a solid option. He's Premier League experience, ticks a few boxes that we probably should be prioritising within our pursuit of a midfielder. But one to keep an eye on there. Paul Brown of the Daily Express, Star and Mirror, so he gets around, said that Tottenham are trying to sign a midfielder with Tanguy Ndombele's future in doubt, and this is one we've been hearing for quite a few days now with Ndombele. He's unhappy about not playing pre-season. He's unhappy that we're trying to sell his personal close personal friends in Sergio Aurier and Moussa Sissoko. But Brown is saying the shortlist includes Corentin Tolisso, Denis Zakaria and João Palhinha, who's been linked with Spurs from quite a few sources in Portugal as well, which we'll jump into in a second. But Paul Brown, giving a bit more detail on these, has said Tottenham have inquired about 27-year-old France international Corentin Tolisso, who could be available for less than £10 million as his contract is up next summer. And it's a typical Spurs link that we're going for a player who is coming into the end of his contract. Get French Football News have been saying that Bayern Munich are trying to sell Tolisso as soon as possible. And I think he's a good option, but you'd have to question why Bayern want to get rid of him and why they're... he joined in 2017, I think, from Lyon. And he was this big up-and-coming midfielder who's a fantastic signing for Bayern. And he's had some good spells in that team, but he hasn't been the player that people have expected him to go on to be. And he hasn't gotten into the French national side, which I think it's kind of difficult to criticise someone on that because of the strength in that French team, especially in that midfield when your starting two is going to be Kante and Pogba. But what I'd be a bit concerned about, but maybe a deal that could work out well for us. And João Palhinha, Paul Brown has said that we've had a loan bid turned down. And a few other links with these same players. Christian Falk said yesterday that Tottenham, Arsenal and Everton are in talks for the transfer of Denis Zakaria. Roma and Napoli also interested. Bild have said that Tottenham are one of 3 Premier League clubs, with Arsenal and Everton as well, I'd assume, keen to sign Zakaria. Borussia Mönchengladbach will consider a bid around €20 million to be acceptable. So not the most reliable stuff on Zakaria just yet, so we're not going to go a bit too much in detail in that one. But the links are there, and they're ones that we should definitely keep an eye on. Now, these links from Portugal for João Palhinha, there's quite a few of them. Pedro Almeida has said that Tottenham are interested in strengthening their midfield and have 2 main targets, João Palhinha, and he also mentions Denis Zakaria there. Ebola say that Sporting Lisbon defensive midfielder Palhinha is a priority signing for Tottenham this summer, with manager Nuno Espirito Santo approving of a move. And Record Portugal say Tottenham are interested in Sporting midfielder João Palhinha. The club are willing to offer €20 million, but the Portuguese club are not satisfied with that offer. €20 million for a player from the Liga NOS, it's a risk. I mean, you do have players over there like Bruno Fernandes, or in the past the Cristiano Ronaldo from Sporting Lisbon as well. And the current replacement for Bruno Fernandes and Pedro Gonçalves, who's actually getting better numbers for them than Bruno Fernandes did. They do have some good players in that team, but I'd be a bit apprehensive about this one as well. The final midfielder we're being linked to, Inter Live, are claiming that Tottenham Hotspur are interested in signing Marcelo Brozovic. The midfielder only has 1 year remaining on his current contract with Inter Milan, and again, you have to remember the situation they're in. They could sell any player, and Brozovic, I would assume, was one of the players there who was on higher wages because he's been there for so long. Few contract renewals, contract extensions and all that. He could be on a bit more money than his counterparts, but so many midfielders there that we're being linked to. And as we start to get these maybe from more reliable sources like Fabrizio Romano, Alistair Gold, or someone else who falls into that category, we're going to do deeper analyses of them, and I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about them. Now, Harry Kane is the next one we're going to talk about, and I don't want to say I broke the news, but before it came out from Alistair Gold and Fabrizio Romano, I said a couple of days ago that as far as I have heard, there are whispers that Harry Kane could sign a lucrative new contract with Tottenham if a move to Manchester City doesn't materialise this summer. Now, since I've said that, Alistair Gold has come out and said the noises coming out of the Harry Kane camp is that he wouldn't be against signing a new contract and it may not include a release clause. And Fabrizio Romano said this morning that during the Euros, Tottenham and Kane weren't discussing a new contract as Kane was focusing on a City move, but if Kane stays at Tottenham after the window closes, the situation could change, as it's 100% true that Levy wants to give Kane a new contract. So that one, while it may sound on the forefront fantastic news and brilliant for Spurs, it's just not one that means Kane is going to stay long term. If Kane puts pen to paper on a new contract, there's something in it for him, and that something is a massive payday and an easier move to Manchester City next summer if it's still on the cards. Gold saying there's no release clause. Romano said it's too early in the kind of in the reports and discussions to even answer yes or no if there will be a release clause, but there's going to be something in there that makes it easier for Harry Kane to move on. And it could be if we don't get Champions League or something like that, but I can't for a second imagine Kane is going to decide, actually, don't you know what, I'll stay at Spurs for the rest of my career. I do think that's out of the window at the moment. Romano said a few other things on Kane as well. He said, when Tottenham received an email about Man City's £100 million bid, they flat out refused, also saying they don't want to talk about Aymeric Laporte nor Gabriel Jesus. Spurs feel like they can change Harry Kane's mind on leaving the club, but they are already looking at many strikers in case Kane will leave. And finally, he said on Last Word on Spurs this evening that Man City are hoping to get the green light from Tottenham to sign Harry Kane in the coming days. And that is a consistent thing throughout this situation, that Manchester City are confident they will sign Kane, but Spurs are confident they'll hold on to Kane. And you just have to wonder, are City actually preparing a 140, 50, 60 million pound bid that Spurs just aren't aware of just yet? They could be, and it's worrying if they are, but we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Fenn says, I think this contract will mean he will leave next summer. I agree with that one. I can't see him signing a deal that keeps him at the club. The kid says, Matty Hayes tier 1. I appreciate that. So that's pretty much the updates on Harry Kane. With regards to other departures, a few more updates from Romano on Last Word on Spurs. He said, it is up to Japhet Tanganga, but Galatasaray are still hoping for him to give the green light. There's a real possibility this deal could go through, and that's on Japhet Tanganga's potential loan move to Galatasaray, which Tottenham have accepted reluctantly. They initially wanted to loan him out to an English club, but they accepted that offer. And now Tanganga seems to be in a similar situation where he wants an English club, but he may have to go to Galatasaray if something there doesn't materialise. Romano also said that Mora had a proposal from the Saudi League, but the player was not keen on the move, so there could have been a potential departure there, and that could have been Al Hilal before they moved for Mateus Pereira. Romano also tells us that Everton have an interest in Harry Winks, but I'm also told that he's really happy at Spurs, but he can be a player with a lot of potential, and he still wants to show his skills at Tottenham, which is questionable at best. Davis is one of the players that could leave this summer, but isn't a priority, so it will only be considered if an important bid comes in. And finally, Moussa Sissoko has a few chances to leave the club. He is one of the players considered on the market. Keep an eye on Italian clubs for him, but not only Italian clubs too. Other leagues are coming interested for him as well. So 4 players there that could be on their way out: Japhet Tanganga, Harry Winks, Ben Davis, and Moussa Sissoko, to keep an eye on in the coming days and in the coming weeks. A few other stories just to touch on briefly. Football Insider today have said that Tottenham have made Jack Clarke available for another loan move. He is now expected to go on loan to a championship club, with manager Nuno deciding it is best for him to get first team minutes. And Football Insiders have always said, if they're talking about anything other than the EFL or Leeds Academy, ignore them. But if it's EFL or Leeds Academy, listen to them, because they were the first to break that news of Denis Serkin to Sunderland, which we'll touch on a bit more in a second. But Jack Clarke may be getting a loan move out. I personally thought he impressed in pre-season, but 20 years of age, it's not a concern that he's not doing well. And I see so many people saying, he needs to go and he's a flop and just sell him, make your money back, 10 million was a waste. He's only 20 years of age. He has so much time to develop, and he's so much time to become the player that Pochettino saw when he signed him from Leeds in 2020 or in 2019. And we need to just give the kid a chance, because that is what he is. He's a kid. He's younger than me, and I feel like a child, and he's younger than me. So let's give Jack Clarke a chance. Maybe he get a loan move, get some more first team experience this season, and let's see where we go from there. One departure that is official is Denis Serkin, who today has joined Sunderland on a permanent deal. Spurs released a statement on their website about 6:15, saying, we have reached agreement with Sunderland for the transfer of Denis Serkin. The 19-year-old left-back made 14 appearances for our under-23 side in the Premier League 2 last season, and has also been named on the bench on 5 occasions for our first team during his time at the club. We wish Denis all the best for the future. And Sunderland confirmed he has joined for an undisclosed fee on a 3-year contract. We wish all the best to Serkin, a player who we've spoken about quite a bit on this channel. David Harris especially, a big fan of him. I'm sure he's disappointed with this news, but there have been whispers that there are some sort of clauses in that where Tottenham can, a parity clause. If a team makes an offer, Tottenham have the chance to match that, given first refusal, and a few other things there. There's no buyback clause from what is being said, but there's a few things there that could make it easier for Tottenham to bring him back to the club in the future if they do wish to do that. Let's look at some other stories. Football Direct in Sweden are saying the Swedish top flight club Degerfors are set to bring in goalkeeper Alfie Whiteman. It is unclear whether the deal will be a permanent or loan, and Whiteman is our third is a third choice goalkeeper. We've let Joe Hart go. It's Galini and Lloris at the moment. There's of course some young players in there like Brandon Austin, who has recently come back from loan from the MLS, I think. But Alfie Whiteman potentially on the way out there to Degerfors in Sweden. Our final story is Eurosport to say that Tottenham are considering a move for Watford winger Ismail Assar. Not a reliable source there, but just thought I'd bring you the news. He's a decent player. Let's keep an eye on that one. Just some updates on Christian Romero and Bryan Gil, because Romero has been talking in the last day or two to the Spurs media team. He's given his first interview. It was all in Spanish, but he's had some interesting things to say. The first thing he said is, in every club that I've been, that people always saw my effort. It doesn't matter if we're doing well or having a rough time. I'm willing to give everything to grow as a player and leave a legacy here at the club. And that's him pictured on the Tottenham Hotspur pitch on Sunday after our victory against Arsenal with head coach Nuno Espirito Santo. He's also spoken about the impact Giovanni Lo Celso had on him and his decision to join Spurs. He said, ever since Gio knew about the interest from the club, he started explaining to me how big the club is and how marvellous things are here. I think I've made the right choice and I hope to leave my mark. So Romero certainly very keen to make his mark on Tottenham and to be the player that we feel we have signed. With regards to his injury, Romano said today, don't worry, it's not that bad. He probably won't play against Manchester City, but it's certainly not long term, and he should be in that starting team very, very soon. Bryan Gil today was pictured in the Spurs shirt for the first time. He arrived at Hotspur Way this morning after flying into London last night following the conclusion of the Olympics, where he of course lost the final, but was very proud with the gold medal, or the silver medal rather, that he came away with. He at Hotspur Way, he was supposed to arrive yesterday, but because the rest of the players were in training, it was pushed back a day, and here he is at Hotspur Way today undergoing his medical tests, and he's already done his full medical, but undergoing those usual tests, returning to pre-season and all that. He's one that I don't think will be in contention for that Man City game, given the fact that he's of course just back from the Olympics. But good to see him finally at Hotspur Way. I'm sure we get some sort of first interview with the player in the coming days, which I'm quite looking forward to. A very exciting young prospect for the future. And there he is again, wearing that Spurs jersey for the first time. Hopefully he won't be the last player to be pictured wearing that jersey for the first time this summer. As Romano said today, he expects to give maybe 2 or 3 more here we goes for Tottenham signings in this window. Before we do wrap up, I'm going to jump onto Twitter and take a few questions that we got. If you do ever want to put in any questions to these live streams, do it using hashtag AskMattHayes on Twitter and tag me at MattHayesTHFC as well. Cairo says, what is the latest on Damsgaard? How many players do you realistically think we'll sign? On Damsgaard, there's no links to Spurs, but Romano again on Last Word on Spurs today was saying that they expect something in the coming days, whether it's Spurs or someone else, but Sampdoria are expecting a bid for the player. And how many players do I think we'll sign? On top of the 3 we've got, I think we need 3 or 4 more at least, but that would heavily depend on departures of players such as Davinson Sanchez or Moussa Sissoko. Fletch says as well, you broke the Kane contract news first, and fair play for doing so. So did you get told any details about it, like the wages, release clause, more years, etc.? I didn't get too much detail on it, because as Romano was saying, at the moment it is very, very early in the, it's not even negotiations, just in the discussions that something like this could be happening. And even Gold said, it's like there's noises coming out of the Kane camp. There's nothing concrete on this, there's nothing in any way advanced, so any details like that are being put out, including what I've said, is just purely a personal assumption, as I was very, very clear on. That there has to be something in there that allows Kane to leave easier, because he's not going to further guarantee his future at the club. But I'm sure we hear more about that in the coming weeks if that move to Manchester City, as I expected, does not go ahead. But look, it's been another very busy day in what is a very, very busy transfer window, and I want to thank everyone for tuning into the stream tonight. There's been 1,700 of you and still 630 left in that live chat, so please hit that like button if you haven't already. Let's get that number up to 200 as quickly as we can. Make sure to subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't already. We're on the road. Cody Mack has decided we're going to get 20k before Halloween, which is a massive ask, but if there's any community that can do it, I know it is. It's definitely this community here. We're on 11,500 at the moment, which is baffling to me. But please do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But for now, for tuning in, and as always, thanks for watching.